Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature, and it's a Friday, which means I bring to you yet another obscurity in literature. And this book in particular was special for me. This was a gift from my wife, who, as much as I love her, would not let me buy it the first time I ever came across this. This book came out in 2017, and I don't remember the excuse that I was given at the time. Probably it was too big, too heavy, and too expensive. This sucker was not cheap, but it is a big book. I mean, quite big. This is Kikkai Senban. So Kikkai would be like kind of strange and unusual, because like that is the kai is in kaijin or like kaiju. And anyway, this book is all about the kaijin designs for the metal hero genre that Toei produced throughout the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, if I remember correctly, with some of the B-Fighter stuff like Kabuto or Kabutaka or whatever they were called. Anyway, so, and obviously if you know who Top Gundar is here from Metalder, and if you know who Metalder is already, you've earned me some brownie points and respect points right there. But this book, I always wanted to see it. I remember looking at it. First of all, it's absolutely massive. It's like 300-something pages. And you can see from the back cover, and there are interviews, as it says right here, with some of the designers. It's just all of the monster actual designs. So it is, you know, from a design point of view, and if you're into designing figures or models, which we are always talking about on this channel, books like this should serve as an absolute inspiration. I was going to say information, but well, it has that too. But yeah, this is a great source of inspiration. I think if you want to be designing models, especially for the tabletop, and you want to do something different, nobody does stuff like this. My God, people, this is like what I really want. I mean, I'm going to have to sit down and learn some freaking ZBrush or Blender or something and just do this myself, because nobody does this stuff. And yeah, a lot of it is the colors, but it's the style and the attitude that I think we don't see a lot of on Western gaming. You know, obviously, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, be it, you know, MMOs, cell games, you know, gacha games, video games of any sort or size or file size. We see a lot more of this aesthetic there. We don't really see this as much in the West, but things have been improving over the years, thankfully. So anyways, as I was saying, just from a design standpoint, so we start off with Gyabon, Uchukeiji Gyabon, which was the very first of the Metal Heroes before they were really called Metal Heroes, and I want to say this is like 1982. I know I watched this with my wife way back when I was in grad school, I think, but just getting to see all of the design work, where some of these costumes look far nicer than they had any business being. You know, sometimes the final results on the screen were not as cool as, you know, some of the artwork here. And it's just neat to see. I mean, you know, just all the little scribbles and line work and erasure marks and just everything on these pages. Things start pretty simple and primitive. Let's be honest. But as you get into some of the other shows, and as time progresses, Shariban from 83. I have not seen much of Shariban. That's an interesting design. And you know what would be even cooler, I think, is to have a book like this with all of the rejected designs. I think that'd be just as interesting. Again, things quite simple back in the day. Okay. We're going with these giant head bodies. Guest monster. Ah, we are in Scheider. Okay. Scheider was the one who had Annie, wasn't it? In her super short skirt. I think it was Annie. Maybe some of our Brazilian friends, French friends, I think both those countries had it air there. Could help me remember that. All I know is she had a short cowboy-style vest and skirt, and she did all her own stunts, and she was pretty awesome from the episodes that I've seen. There's an interesting Santa Claus. So again, lots of goofy simple, basic designs. I think it's when we start to get into the later shows, kind of Juspion and after that, that things start to really get interesting. I don't know. Yep, this is Juspion era. Okay. I really like Juspion. I think if you were going to go check out any of the Metal Hero shows, Juspion is pretty wild, especially in its early episodes. Spielbahn. Now here's some interesting stuff. Spielbahn was one of the shows that VR Troopers in the US was an amalgamation of that and Metalder, which we'll get to. But I think as you start to exit the 80s and leave them behind and get into the 90s, there's an interesting Cowboy Terminator. Yeah. I remember Spielbahn, at least from the VR Trooper episodes that we saw. We watched it just for that purpose, was to see what kind of interesting mechs they would have. And so that's one thing you start to see in the Metal Hero shows as you get into the 90s and later, a lot more of the mecha type stuff. I want to say this looks like, is that Spielbahn? Because I think, nope, that's what I thought, Metalder. Metalder was pretty cool, and that's like one of those first episodes I know I've watched, and I think you can actually see it on Toei's YouTube channel, where they have all the bad guys, literally all the bad guys in the army all show up and fight over who's going to get to defeat Metalder. Definitely some interesting designs. Where's Top Gundar? There you are. Getting into, like, the body horror, bioorganic stuff, which also seems to have been quite a prominent element. That's pretty cool looking. In a lot of the Metal Fighter shows. Metal Hero, Metal Fighter. Jiraiya. So, fun fact, I've never seen an episode of Jiraiya, but you know what? We had the Tacky Stretchoid Warriors, and I don't know if you guys remember those. There's Waldo. Waldo, the American Ninja. Jiraiya himself, and the Knight. Fukuro. The Crow Knight. I know my brother had that one. Sparkle Child, you absolutely had some of those guys, if you're watching at some point. So it's kind of cool to see all the designs. You wouldn't think they're very Metal Hero-ish, but yes, they were. They're all wearing armor. Oh, yeah. That Cyber City Oedo hair. All the grunts and stuff. I mean, just getting to look through this. Gibbon. Now, Gibbon and Jan Parson, I think, are where you start to really see some cool-looking costumes and really just going all out with this stuff. I'm not super familiar with Gibbon. I know I've seen a bit more of Jan Parson, but both of them seem to have the aliens and the robots very much in that uniquely Japanese aesthetic that I absolutely dig. Gibbon was like RoboCop. And then Jan Parson was even more RoboCop. At least Gibbon had like a fake human form, from what I remember. Whereas Jan Parson was just all in. Bunch of interviews, which are kind of cool because they do have some of the early sketch work of this stuff. And then we get into the Blue SWAT Rescue Hero stuff. And again, very anime-esque, 90s anime-esque, which I'm all for it. There's Jan Parson. No, that's not Jan Parson. That's the one rival dude. Blue SWAT is interesting. Blue SWAT seems to have like been influenced by X-Files and a bit of XCOM. And they're fighting like evil bug-eyed monsters coming to Earth. Interesting that the concept pages actually change texture when you get to the black and white line art here for this stuff. Like I said, there's some definite fun stuff to be digging around in. Bee fighters. So I think here's where you start to really see some refined artwork for the monsters. Sure, there's some cheesy ones in here. Very much a Super Sentai reject. Then you got cool looking ninja dudes like this. Big spiky robots. Dragon dudes? Why not, right? Bee Fighter Kabuto. And again, the designs, I don't know, I never saw the original show. I think it was like this weird haunted house thing with like homeless people or something. It was really weird. I was already in college, I think, by the time this stuff was showing up on TV in the US, so I never really watched it. Although I will admit the designs were always a guilty pleasure. I used to watch all that stuff, Superhuman Samurai Squad. I know actually my son has been really into Gridman, the Japanese version of it, for as goofy as it is. Yeah, Plex did these. That's right. Bee Fighters. And you do get some of the early sketch and design work towards the back of this book. I just absolutely enjoyed flipping through this. This is one of those kind of books where it's like every time you look at it, you're going to find something new and something interesting. So hopefully if you get a chance just to pop this up nice and big on the screen. So here's some of the stuff from the more recent Gavon movies, which is pretty cool to see. He's just like, oh, it was a terrible movie. It wasn't that bad. Whatever they had, Kenji Oba or whatever his name is, doing the actual stunts work still. I thought that was pretty cool. Still with the bird ladies. The horror girls. Satan Gorth. Oh, yeah. I swear they must have got the idea for the Satan Gorth head being the villain from Juspion from, what's it called? Some of the Annihilation. One of those series where they had like the bad guys were stationed in like an old Celestial's head. I think it was Annihilation. It was one of those Guardians of the Galaxy books. So yeah, just an absolute pile of interesting stuff if you dig the Sentai aesthetic, which I absolutely do. I'm not going to make any qualms with it. I don't tend to regularly watch the shows outside of watching Ultraman stuff with my kids. And the odd Sentai stuff here and there. And you know what? I would absolutely love to see a book like this. And I know there's some with all the Sentai monsters. I don't know if I ever showed off like my big Super Sentai encyclopedia. They've had a couple of those over the years. But I would love a book just like this of nothing but the monster designs for Sentai stuff. I mean, to me, that's the only reason to really watch. I could care less about the heroes, even as a kid, even when watching it with my kids, even my own kids, they're like, well, I don't care about the heroes. I just want to see the bad guys look cool. And I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the best part. So if you're into this kind of stuff, thankfully, this one seems to be in print still. Like I said, I know there's some books that are of similar design. I know there's one that I'm hoping I end up getting for the holidays on all of the modern millennial Kamen Rider villains, and there's some really cool stuff, and you've got like Nirasawa and Amamiya and Asamiya doing all the design work there, like shows like Blade and Gaim and which one did he do? I don't remember. There's interesting stuff, but yeah. So if this is something up your alley, I'm going to put that title. Go ahead, copy and paste it, and see if you can track it down through Amazon Japan or your bookstore of choice. With that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.